it just so happened that a friend of mine decided to visit me, and at the last moment changed. Instead of going shopping and then visiting me, he decided to visit me first. And it just so happened that my front door was unlocked. If he had gone shopping first, he would have found me passed away. Or if the front door were locked and had to get emergency services, I would have passed away on the kitchen floor. So I was rushed to the hospital, and that began the first of 14 operations. I was began the first. At first, the coma was a medically induced coma was 3 weeks, and then there was another time where they put a patch in that didn't work, and I was in a month-long coma. And as I say, bounced into the operating room like a ping pong ball during that month.
Welcome to Stories from Under the Piano. I'm Craig Addy, your host. I'm the musician who listens to the listener. This podcast offers a glimpse into the world of Under the Piano, an immersive musical experience I've been providing for 15 years. Over 1,000 people have discovered comfort, connection, and healing through these sessions lying under my grand piano. In each podcast episode, a guest shares a personal story, and I respond with a spontaneous piano piece that evokes the emotions and mood of their story. My mission is to connect, comfort, and inspire through the universal language of music. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Let's dive in. Welcome to Stories from Under the Piano. I am delighted to have Stephen Honyotski with me today. And we call you Steve, don't we, Stephen?
Please.
Yes. So welcome, Steve. I'm so thrilled that you could join us today. How are you today?
I'm terrific and glad to be here.
Awesome. I'm so thrilled that you could be here. So let's start with just very briefly, let people know a little about you, where you're from, where you grew up, what are your interests and endeavors these days?
Sure. My name is Steve Honyotski. I grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut, which was known for many years as the brass capital of the world, producing the most brass products in the world for decades. I then went to school in Washington, D.C. and lived there for a few years. And now I've resided in Boston. And in a few days, it'll be for 43 years I've lived in Boston. While I was here, I had a career in nonprofit management, most of the time on a senior level doing the finance and accounting. And I've enjoyed that career. I could really, believe it or not, I expressed my creativity, which is kind of rare for an accountant, and able to design computer systems and processes to increase efficiency. And that's that's the angle I worked at. And passions and interests, my life changed very quickly due to a very serious car accident 20 years ago. And I had to be essentially reborn and recreated, that I choose to do. And now I'm interested, some of the things I'm really interested in, I love being an uncle to my 9 nieces and nephews. I'm an opera goer and really an opera addict, actually. And having worked for a ballet company, I learned about that. And then I decided now it's time to take on opera, and that's what I did. I'm a crafter and a quilter. And I serve on 2 nonprofit boards to give back to the community, as well as running several blood drives a year, because I learned in my process that blood truly is the gift of life. And I have a wide range of friends. I love to laugh, and I think the best thing I can do with laughter is when I can able to see myself and laugh at myself. But I love a good joke and can be a good prankster, especially with my nieces and nephews. I love to cook. I love to eat. And I think that's a quick summary of me and my interests right now.
Fantastic. I love it. You're obviously up to a lot and making a difference in the world. So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to share a story now, and I'm going to listen, and I may ask you some questions after, and then I'm going to create a piece of music that evokes what I hear in your story. So what story would you like to share?
I could share about my experience about being in the hospital and recreating my life afterwards. if you find that
Fantastic.
interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Talk a little bit about the blood drives.
Perfect. Yeah. Go ahead. It's all your, go ahead with
Here
your story.
goes.
Yeah.
Uh, being a numbers guy, let's start with the numbers. And I was in the hospital in rehab for 321 days all total. There was multiple hospitalizations. I've had 14 abdominal operations. I'm on my third patch. I used 104 pints of blood through the process. And actually, it started as a simple, it was a fender bender and a huge accident. I'm not going to deny that. But I went to the hospital and they discharged me. But what happened was a few days after that, my spleen ruptured. And I was laying on my kitchen floor for hours. Actually, it was a slow one. And it just so happened that a friend of mine decided to visit me, and at the last moment changed. Instead of going shopping and then visiting me, he decided to visit me first. And it just so happened that my front door was unlocked. If he had gone shopping first, he would have found me passed away. Or if the front door were locked and had to get emergency services, I would have passed away on the kitchen floor. So I was rushed to the hospital, and that began the first of 14 operations. I was began the first coma was a medically induced coma was 3 weeks. And then there was another time where they put a patch in that didn't work. And I was in a month-long coma. And as I say, bounced into the operating room like a ping pong ball during that month. And I'm grateful that I didn't know much about it. It was a very difficult situation for family and friends because I was in very critical condition, and they knew for about 2 weeks at any time I could just pass away. So I had to begin when I came to and stuff after being laying in bed for about 3 months. I had to learn how to walk again. And it was one of those times where I really had to pull myself up my bootstraps. That really is, a second thing, to sit there in a wheelchair between the parallel bars to pull myself up and take those first steps, and had to start with that. After the second coma, because it intubated for so long, I had to learn how to speak again. And that was a different experience, not being able to talk or just mumble things out and retrain the muscles of my mouth to speak. So simple little things like that. And one of the times when I was in the wheelchair, I asked for something simple. And that was, could you wheel me outside so I could feel sunshine and fresh air on my face? And the reason why I share that story, Craig, is because the simple things we take for granted in life, it was a real reminder. And I'll give you an example. I mean, there's many down days actually through all of this because my career ended and almost my life ended. And in those tough days, I remember something simple. A, I can wake up. B, I can sit up. C, I can stand up. D, I can walk. E, I can walk downstairs. F, I can make something to eat. And G, I can eat it. And I went for many weeks without any of that. And so something simple was having breakfast, getting out of bed and having breakfast. I enumerated it there to say all those things had to be built upon. And so when I have those dark days, I remember, Steve, you're walking, you can have breakfast, most people who meet me, they never know what happened, or I show no signs of it. So I'm grateful for all of that. One of the things along the way that I did is always it took a while for them to adjust the pain medications to be effective. And they wanted me to walk, and I couldn't move. I mean, I could stay still, but the thought of walking after the operations was so painful. So they got that ready. But all the time was, how is your pain? How is your pain? Rate your pain. Rate your pain from 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, all this other stuff. And I just sort of had it after a while because I was in so much pain. And I created what I call the fun meter. Where are we at on the fun meter? What brings us, where are we at? And if you're like a 7, what can we do to make it an 8? And I employed that with my nieces and nephews all the time. And, if you were in a 0 to 3, we changed everything we're doing immediately with the kids. And they love that. We're, Uncle Stephen, we're high on the fun meter, or no, we're low on the fun meter, and things like that. And so it's like a thing to check in with ourselves, and something I just created because I was so sick and tired of hearing, where are you on the pain meter? Here's the picture. I just had it. And there were so it's different things, and you get to think about life, and that's really what I'd like to say too. I think about life really differently when I'm laying in bed for so many weeks, unable to even turn on my side. You got to think about life, because Price is Right and Jeopardy only get us so far for so long. And I feel I've been reborn and I've been given a second chance. And I don't mess this version up. And, that's how I just think about life, and the joy of life and things takes on new meaning. And of course, I have to say, my spiritual life just exploded and broadened and deepened. And I'm so grateful. I mean, I have a ton of friends that took care of my house, took care of me, the hundreds and hundreds of doctor's appointments followingly, and all that stuff was all taken care of. Family and friends were just incredible to take care of and support me through really pretty much whatever I needed. And I needed a lot.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to taking things for granted. My mom's had a bit of a health setback, and I just came back from spending 2 weeks with her, and she can't do much of anything for herself right now. And you suddenly realize how important those little things are, So I relate to that completely.
Simple pleasures and simple joys are really important when we can struggle doing even those simple things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I played the piano for her a few times. She liked that.
Sure. Music is important,
Yeah, and they started another Downton Abbey marathon.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah. Again, the simple pleasure.
Yeah.
And for me, like music, when you put a great story to it, marvelous singing, the preciousness of the human voice, and gorgeous sets and costumes, well, there you have it, opera, So, I get it.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions about your story. First of all, for my own clarification, you had the car accident and you were in the hospital for a while, and then you were at home when the issue with the spleen happened, right?
Well, more specifically, I was in the car accident. In fact, I walked into the ambulance from the car accident, just to be clear about that. And I was in the hospital for 5 days with a lacerated spleen and a few fractured ribs. And then they sent me home.
Oh, okay. So things didn't seem that serious at first.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And then 2 days later, and I was complaining about being tired all the time. That's what people said for those 2 days. And then 2 days later, a friend of mine visited me, and I sat down to read the Boston Globe. They got up and used my bathroom downstairs and fell and pulled the sink off the wall and lay on my kitchen floor for about 4 hours.
Okay.
And just so you know, when a spleen ruptures outside the hospital, you only have a 7% chance of living.
Oh, I had no idea. Yeah.
I'm one of the rare ones that even there, I was in the 7% category, even just making to the hospital alive.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now I'm clear about that. I want you to give me kind of, as we go through that journey of the accident, then the incident with the spleen, then the coma, and then the recovery, what is the emotional journey that you went through? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the emotional journey. Well, don't forget, I got up to go to the bathroom, and the next thing I remember, it's over 3 weeks later, and I'm in a hospital bed.
Yes, that's the coma. So you can't tell me about that part.
Surgery. So my memory of the whole thing was, quite frankly, that I was on a boat, and I was putting gifts for Christmas together with coffee beans, and I'm not a coffee drinker, but that's how I made sense of it, and something to do with Burger King. Well, in reality, the nursing staff had fried fish, and my friends and family were eating Burger King in my room while I was on that mattress that undulates. So, I mean, that's how my mind put it all together. And So the journey, there was a thing where I guess I was gesturing to write something, and I gave me a piece of paper, and I wrote, "Get me the hell out of here now" on the paper. So you can be cognizant, but the medications erase the short-term
Right,
memory.
right.
And that's
Yeah.
so,
Okay. So what was the emotion when you had the accident for you?
well, first of all, I have to say, I don't remember the accident.
Oh, you don't remember the accident either. Okay.
So I came off a highway and I was T-boned, and someone was throwing water in my face to bring me back.
Okay.
So I have no memory. I can piece the accident together based on the damage on the car and what I was told. But the memory, the crash, none of it. None of
Okay.
it. It's gone.
Okay. So let's go to after the coma.
Coma.
Yes. And what are the emotions for you when you're actually cognizant of what's going on?
Well, I first of all I was all puffed up because of the fluid resuscitation and could barely move my hand. So I remember going like this, counting the number of days I was out of it, because they had a calendar in the room. And I had to remember that it was June 15th. And then we're well into July, and when's July 4th celebration and stuff like that to do. So I had to piece myself together in time, and that took a while. And then I had to realize where I was at, and then it was starting to explain to me what had happened in the interim. And they were really very slow about it because there was a lot that happened. And get used to my medical team and the doctors and rounds every day, and being poked for blood tests and medications every day. That was, I feel like really within a week, I was more than a pincushion, and start understanding, and then start having friends in to make sure, for example, my mortgage had paid for July, that what was going on with my house, how to do things and stuff like that. And start making lists. And I also started a journal to start writing things.
So
what I was thinking.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking you for the emotions is that music is the language of emotion. So you described a whole bunch of things that happened. So what was that like for you? How did you feel about all of that?
Oh, there was anger. There was curiosity. There was sadness. Friends of mine held my hand as I cried because I realized the seriousness and the radical change to my life. To do it. There were chaplains to pray with. There were a lot of fun things, games to play and things to amuse myself and keep myself mentally active. And to know that the emotion was, I knew I had to do something to bring myself fully back to life. To do that. And it was something like simple things that I requested, because I couldn't get out of bed and I was wheeled out for a lot of testing. So I had friends of mine get me stuff that I could buff my nails, and I could have my nails done because I was going out of my room. It was like a funny thing to start laughing. Like, what could I do? Because I couldn't control my appearance. I couldn't do anything. I could brush my teeth. And then I was NPO for a while, which is nothing by mouth. I could only brush my teeth very infrequently. I couldn't sip water. I couldn't do anything like that. All that stuff had been taken away. So I had to find something to amuse myself, or else I know I would slip into the sadness. And I knew that that had to be processed, but I had to really take that off in very small chunks. And also, we didn't know what the future was. I mean, they, for example, prepared me that I would be wheelchair bound and tube fed the rest of my life. And I said, Doctor, I know you give orders. I'm giving you an order. That's not going to happen. That is just not going to happen. And you are to see to it that it doesn't. Now, this was a military, Marine trained, brilliant trauma surgeon who was impeccable in his appearance and his work. And so for me to give him orders was a big thing, by the way. And I knew that, and I did it intentionally. And there were areas that I guess I'm being intellectual, but I realized emotionally I had to have some control somewhere in my life, because in the professional world I had the title controller, which is kind of funny, but I had to categorize like an accountant and organize and control and to make sense of it because of the emotional impact of what was going on underneath it. And I could share that with a few friends when they visited. And that was very important to me. What the emotional life was like, it took me like 9 to 10 weeks before I could even look at my abdomen to see the stitch working and surgical scar. And I cried mightily about that when I saw it. It was shame. It was fear. It was major, major. And so if you get emotional now, a friend of mine who had been in the services said, Stephen, this is a war wound to be proud of. We honor those who have their scars because they've been through so much. And we want you to be proud of this, not ashamed in any way. And another friend of mine who was with me said, we don't care about your scar at all. You're just here with us, and that's all we care about. But for me, I get emotional now. It was such a big event just to look, because I would just cover myself when the surgeon had to take care of it, and the nurses had to dress the wound and the sutures and stuff. So to go long, something as simple as that was an emotional upheaval.
Yeah. Thank you. And then time passes and there's rehabilitation and
I had to learn to walk again, and I get into a wonderful rehabilitation facility here in New England. And the second day, you have to meet with the poobah of this and the manager of that and the vice president of this and that. And I told them, look, I run the meeting. I'm an executive. I run the meeting. I had a spoon against the rail of my bed. And I said, the meeting is open. Your job is to get me walking. Don't open those chairs. Don't sit down. The meeting banged again. The meeting's adjourned. And they looked at me. I said, yeah, there's nothing to talk about. I can use my jaw. That's great. Those muscles are working just fine now. My legs, we got to get them moving. So let's get started. We don't need, you can talk and I can walk and talk in here, but the emphasis on walking. They looked at me, and then the chart I saw later said they'd never seen someone so motivated and never had anyone. This is supposed to be a 2-hour production. They'd meet me in the hallway and tell me the information. I'll pick it up as we go along. And they said they never saw anyone so motivated because I determined I'm going to walk. There is no choice in that matter. And it seems like a simple decision, but I look back at it, it really was the thing that charted the course for the future. I made a decision.
Yeah.
And I couldn't give it up at any.
I could hear that determination earlier when you were in bed. I mean, in what you were sharing. So. Yeah.
And out of the whole thing, I do want to say I had a ton of respect from the medical staff. They thought they came to me in tears, and I'm talking men and women crying, thanking what I taught them about medicine, not about the chemistry of it or the science of it, but how to interact with the patient. And they were crying and everything else. And I said to one woman who was crying, I said, you're a resident now. I just have one suggestion for you. And she says, what's that, Steve? I said, if you're going to cry with your patients, could you wear waterproof mascara? Because black down your heart is very unprofessional and, quite frankly, unflattering. And they're laughing with me. That was it. They would laugh with me about that. So I was outspoken with them. Yeah. And the doctor, the trauma surgeon, Dr. Marine there said, you deserve an honorary doctoral degree, MD degree, what you've learned about medicine. Like, you are a quick study and you just were, a trooper, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was a Marine, and he's a trauma surgeon. And surgeons have big egos. I learned that. But when he discharged me and we were done, I practiced many times trying to say thank you to him. And I always would start crying. And he hugged me and started crying with me. So he saved my life many times. He saved my life.
Yeah.
I said, how can I say thank you? How can I say thank you? I can't. Words just inadequate. He said, I know this, Steve, and everything else. And he's crying with me. So very touching moment. With the emotional journey, if you will.
Yeah.
Because a man who saw me every day, who came in on his days off to check in on me, who I saw him every other day, and then many times a week in the operating room, and all this other stuff. And then it was every week, and then every 2 weeks, then every 3 weeks, then every month, then every quarter, then every year, and then I was discharged.
Yeah. So I hear a great deal of gratitude and thankfulness in there. on both sides. So you're discharged. How are you feeling then?
Well, I'm struggling to put my life back together again. And Tuesday was banking and Friday was shopping. That was my schedule with friends taking me around. And in the interim, I had a binder on and a Jackson Pratt drain tube and everything else that I had to manage. So in the other days off, it was the big deal was to take a shower and do that. And then friends came by, of course, to visit and things like that. But it was a very quiet time. And that was from September to March. And what happened was I had a huge ventral hernia and they had to repair it. And on March 17th was the surgery for that, to repair a ventral hernia. And then what happened, the patch burst and cut up my intestines. And then I was in the, 38-day coma after that, where I was intubated the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I had to go into rehab again to learn how to walk and learn how to speak again. So the walking part I had down. Been there, done that. So that was a little bit more easy. And then the speaking part was, the challenge that time. And it was a shorter rehab. That was home. Yeah. But it's weird. You talk about the days. I wake up because I thought, like March 17th, I'd be awake March 18th. And I'd call my sister and say, what are we doing for Easter? She said, Steve, that was 3 weeks ago. And like jarring. It's like, it is a sleep. Like when we're asleep, we don't know if we're asleep for 7 hours, 8 hours, or 9 hours. This was 38 days. So it's a mind bender. It's a mind bender to grasp all of that.
Yeah. I think for the music, I'm not going to try to do a linear expression of what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to trust myself and we'll see what comes out.
Yeah. You talk about emotional experiences. May I share one?
Yes.
Okay. So my aunt, my beloved aunt, was a thing for butterflies. And butterflies are massive in our family. Massive. And this aunt had butterflies on her toilet seat and towels and glasses and everywhere. So they're a big thing, very big thing to us. And my friend who came with me in the ambulance the first time round told my mother, Steve's going to be fine because there's butterflies on the operating room door. Okay? So that was the sign that we all used. That was the anchor point that they all used during the first coma. And then when I come home, I live in a house which has a very small front yard. It's probably a car length lawn. So it's not very wide from the sidewalk to the front door. Mm-hmm. And so I'm getting out of the car and my friend John's helping me and I'm with the cane and all that other good stuff. And we're getting there steady and we're going to go up there's 3 steps and then the front door. And between us, the sidewalk and us, 2 butterflies come by.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I get emotional now. John and I we're in tears. Like, okay, we got what that means. Got it. Thank you on high.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, again. That was my welcome home.
Beautiful. It's amazing how these synchronicities with nature are so impactful.
That's right. Yeah. And then the emotional thing was friends of mine planted my front yard with flowers because I like to garden too. That's one of my passions. And they knew to get me downstairs and get me outside, I'd take care of the garden. I wouldn't do it any other reason, but they knew if they planted the garden for me. So I came home with the garden in bloom. That's why the butterfly was there.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. That might be a good place to end the piece with that. So.
All right. Yeah. You do.
Okay.
And then, should I get into my passion project as a result of
No, we're going to do that after the music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to do that after the music. There's a lot in everything you've shared. It's more than enough to create music from.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
I'm moved. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're right. A tears in my eyes to follow the tones and the textures and the rhythm of it all was beautiful, Craig.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you, Stephen. And I know that
Beautiful.
means something coming from an opera ballet buff.
Yeah, musical theater, sir. Throw that in there too. Yeah. No, it's just like, and I love solo piano music, and it was beautiful how you captured so much, or how I brought myself to the music and interpreted so really what it is.
Yeah, it's very astute of you. It is a two-way thing. Yeah.
And it's the tones and the textures and the melodic and discordant, maybe that's not the word, but the atonal stuff that put into it that makes it all just with the beat and the rhythm, just to open my heart and just listen and go along for the ride with you. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'll send you the music so you can listen to it.
I want to hear it again.
Yeah. And of course, it'll be on the podcast.
Of course, yeah. I don't need to hear myself talk. I just need to hear the music.
Now, so to finish off, I'd like to invite you to share about any passion projects you're involved in, and I know that you have one. So go ahead and let us know, and how people can contribute to what you're up to and things like that.
Sure. One of the things that I would like to, just before I get started, is one of the things that my friends did while I was in the hospital so long, they called it Operation Best Care, where they brought in food for the staff taking care of me. They couldn't take care of me directly, but they could take care of the staff taking care of me. And I mean, I'm talking about they brought in great food, and they knew a cup of coffee and a Entenmann's baked good was not going to suffice, but I'm talking about fresh fruit from their gardens and vegetables and meals made for the staff. And it was known coming in. And so when I went back many times for, some care that I needed along the way, quite a few times, which I called the hospital the resort. I'm going to the resort again. But they all said, "Oh, are your friends going to bring us the food and stuff?" And it was really helpful to send appreciations to the medical staff and for what my friends expressing their appreciation for what they were doing for me. Along the way, these friends came to me when I was in my second rehab and said, "We're going to start a blood drive. And we're going to go." So they had to schedule it a few weeks out so I could be able to have enough energy to be able to go. And I was hobbled in, and the posters went out announcing this drive. And it actually went out, first of all, in memory of, and I got to call them and say, "Do you know something I don't?" And I prefer it in honor of, not in memory of. I don't know whether you're trying to tell me them along the way. You never know with what I'd been through. So they had to reprint the posters. And they wheeled me in, and not wheeled, I was walking in, but I hobbled in. I was with a cane and very weak. I mean, and I was there 45 minutes and exhausted for a few days afterwards. But that started the blood drive. And as I got better, I said, "I'm taking this on," because I really realized I had terrific medical care here in Boston. I mean, world class. I had support of friends and family. They were with me this whole marathon in amazing ways. But without the gift of life, I wouldn't be here. And I don't know what it would be like to meet those 104 people who donated blood such that I'm alive today. I don't know what that means. It'd be so emotional. I mean, again, like I said earlier, I can't say thank you. Words are just right in the thank you note. I don't know. I just can't say thank you. So with that in mind, I took over coordinating the blood drives, and with my experience in cooking, I worked for a catering company and whatever, and my love of cooking, we had one drive a year, and we were the second largest blood drive in the year with the Red Cross for all of New England. And the first one was New England Cable News, which broadcasted live from the blood drive facility. And I said, I can't compete with that. But in terms of numbers for a one-day drive for a few years, we were the number 2. And it's now grown. That because my accident happened in June, I want to drive in June because there's a way of healing for me to be able to thank people. Because I can't thank those people who gave to me, but I can thank the people giving now for the people that their lives will be touched by their donation. And that took me a few years to realize, actually. And so the context for all of it was a celebration of life. And now, I think last 2024, we had 7 drives, and this year we're planning 7 or 8. We're waiting for the confirmation of getting a space. And I know a man who makes premium ice cream here in Boston. He donates an unlimited ice cream as a treat rather than the boring snack that the Red Cross gives out. We do it a little differently. And I get the privilege of thanking donors. And it is fascinating, the range of responses that are just usually, I mean, I have a story. A story.
Yeah.
So I'm touched by that. I'm touched by, most of the time, most people who've used a lot of blood don't come back. People tell me they've done donating over 20 years and no one's come back to say thank you. I said, well, I'm that man who's doing that now.
Wow. Yeah.
And makes it different with the ice cream. And it is a fun event. And I have a group of people who we produce these blood drives, I'll say, and organize it and everything. And it's an exciting experience to thank people. And you never know, it's like chocolates. You never know what you're going to get when I approach someone to say thank you. And I do make it a point to thank everyone when I'm there. I mean, when they're on the table and they're donating, they have no choice other than to listen to me. But it's interesting. And, I could cite stories of stuff. And it's really interesting to hear the medical profession or people who want to hear a lot more about my story. It's interesting. And I remember this one man, and he's really quite, a motorcycle driver with the helmet and the boots and the whole bit and, shoulders that are hanging off the table and everything else. He's, very athletic. And he starts crying on the table when he hears my story. And it's to me, I am so moved. Do you mind if I bring my buddies to your next drive? So the next drive was about 8 motorcycle bikers. And that's not the world I travel in. And I don't think I'm the blood donors, but it changes lives.
Yeah.
And people say, now I appreciate it because I live in a world where the blood is there in a hospital. You go into a room, you turn the light switch on, but electricity's there. Well, it's not that simple. It's quite a bit that goes on behind the scenes to have blood available when it's needed. And they say, oh, my wife had, say anemia, and she got a few pints. Well, I really now I get your blood drives, why you're passionate about it. I said, well, imagine if your whole life depended on it. You can see where I'm at. And the guy who likes the numbers, we're over 5,500 pints of blood that we've raised over the 20 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. That, and a point of blood can affect 3 people. So that's about 17,000 people that we've affected directly, plus the people around them. So, yeah. That's my passion project and my way of giving back. And it's just not a production. It's really where we go and have a lot of fun with people. And, they talk, they want to hear my story, but we talk about anything and everything and just be with them in a different way. Rather than just giving blood, they say thank you and, have a juice and a old stale cookie or something. And we make it a little different.
Well, I can hear how you're really making the connection. Even when you give blood, it's just, it's going into a bag and you're not present to the difference it's making for people. So you're creating that connection, which is powerful.
Yeah. Blood is considered connective tissue, by the way. It's connective tissues. And I help to do that, by, as you say, with the connection and humanizing it and stuff like that. We joke about how, I really was insistent, but we have to say thank you. Like you can never, ever say thank you enough. So, and we have people on the Red Cross we're known with and stuff like that who enjoy working our blood drives, because for more than just getting some great ice cream, by the way, and it's just working with us in the spirit we bring to it.
Yeah.
Which you're right.
So I'm betting that you would like to encourage people to donate blood.
Sure. Let's go with the numbers again. The statistics are that only 5% of the people who are able to donate blood do donate. So we got to ramp that number up a lot. And I'm asking people who can donate to take the hour and realize you can save up to 3 lives. I'm living proof of that.
Yeah.
The other reason is the reason people don't donate is because they haven't been asked. Well, consider this me asking you. That's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And that's where I wanted to speak to it.
Yeah.
I will tell you that it's every 2 seconds a pint of blood is needed. Every 2 seconds. In the United States, a pint of blood is needed.
Wow.
Yeah. And the supplies are low. They're at like a 25-year low. Craig, quite frankly, they used to have something like a 20-day supply. Now they have a half-day supply. And surgeries are being delayed or canceled because there isn't enough blood. And quite frankly, if we have one of those mass needs for blood with a mass shooting, to lose lives because there isn't enough blood is really unfortunate, because that's something we can do. We as people can do, make a contribution to it.
Okay. And how do you recommend people do that? Like, what do they do?
Well, I'm on the East Coast here, and we use the Red Cross, but we have these things called Google and computers. Like, I want to donate blood, and there's different. You can do that in Canada too, and you can go out on the West Coast. They have different organizations that are, with a little bit of work. I don't know where to go around the country, but I know the West Coast is a little different than the East Coast.
Yeah.
And hospitals will donate blood. I'm sorry, hospitals will take donations of blood. But I know in the United States that if you donate at a hospital, it only stays within that hospital where that hospital is licensed. But I chose to work with the Red Cross because if they need the blood in Afghanistan, it can go out to California. Right. In fact, blood from Boston, New England, went down to the shooting that was in Fort Lauderdale. So they can move it. There's a wider range to do it. And those people who are, I think it's type O negative or something, that's liquid gold, because it's a universal recipient. Anybody can take their blood and stuff. They're really important and really treasured in the blood donation community. Things to do. Just know that your donation is making a huge difference when lives are on the line.
Yeah.
As mine was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for what you're doing to make a difference in the world.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Please keep donating. Please, and to do that. And Craig, thank you for sharing your talent and capability. I was so very, very moved by hearing what you had to, your interpretation, to put it to music. And it touches my soul deeply. And that's why I want to hear it.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, so I've got a couple other episodes coming out before yours. So yours will probably go out next month sometime.
Sure.
I do them every 2 weeks. I took a break for Christmas, so.
You're allowed to do that. You don't need to take breaks for Christmas. Just let me know where it goes and where
I'll let you know.
I will have many people looking. They're already excited to hear what our work together produces. So I want to let them know where to go and to prepare them.
Yes, of course.
Greg, it's been a joy to talk about this and to share it, and then also see your talents and capabilities. It was very, very moving to me.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure and honor having you on as a guest.
Thank you. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you when I enter the internet sphere and sorry, go a little.
Thank you for tuning in to Stories from Under the Piano. If today's episode resonated with you, consider booking your own personal Under the Piano session. It's available both in person and online. Experience the transformative power of music, tailored just for you, featuring several personalized compositions that capture the essence of your stories. Learn more and book your session at craigaddy.com. Let's create something beautiful together.